night I dreamt that the warring nations were at a ball. There wasn't anyone talking fight. They realized that it wasn't right. And this is just what I noticed in the hall. The King of England danced with the President of France. The Crown Prince of Germany danced with the King of Hungary. They all laid down their swords while the different dukes and lords all shouted, "We don't want any more talk of war talk." They started drinking to each other like brothers. They drank a toast to each other's flag. The Russians all said to the Kaiser, "Let's drink some Budweiser." Then he shook his hand while the German band played an American rag. The Russians all wet his lips with wine and started whistling the Wacht am Rhein. The Kaiser sang Tipperary with applause. They kept it up to the break of day, and then they started to go away. The whole world rang out with gladness just because the King of England danced with the President of France. The Crown Prince of Germany danced with the King of Hungary. They all laid down their swords while the different dukes and lords all shouted, "We don't want any more talk of war talk." They started drinking to each other like brothers. They drank a toast to each other's flag. The Russians all said to the Kaiser, "Let's drink some Budweiser." Then he shook his hand while the German band played an American, made in America, an American rag.
The shortest ever opening words, Edward Markham's epigram. He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in.
You all know the chorus, so please sing along. Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, go today, don't delay. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. Tell your sweetheart not to pine, to be proud her boys in line. Over there, set the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Johnny, show the Hun you're a son of a gun. Hoist the flag and let her fly, like true heroes do or die. Pack your little kit, show your grit, do your bit. Soldiers to the ranks, from the towns and the tanks. Tell your mother not to pine, to be proud her boy send the word over there that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, over there, over there. Send the word over there that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there.
Good morning. That was wonderful. Welcome to the First Parish in Bedford, gathered in love and service for justice and peace. It is not like this every Sunday, but it is like this Sunday, and it's great to be together again. Welcome to new visitors and to old friends. Here in this church, human beings have gathered for centuries, seeking a higher purpose and deeper life than they could find alone. We are grateful today for each one of you that you have found your way here to First Parish, and this community is more vibrant because you are a part of it. We celebrate the many diversities among us: age, race, class, sexual orientation or gender identity, religious and political beliefs. Yet we gather here as a community of people who are more than categories. We gather here each caring for the other, meeting one another's strengths, encouraging wholeness. We give thanks for this extraordinary blessing, the gathering together of separate, unique individuals as one whole community. Here may our minds stretch, our hearts open, our spirits deepen. Here may we acknowledge our brokenness and be ever stirred by love's infinite possibilities. Here may we become the people the world needs. My name is Megan Lines. I'm one of the ministers here. This morning's service, as you've already seen, is coordinated by Brad Connor, and we are in for a treat with our own Larry Herz preaching this morning. Larry, thank you for bringing us your wisdom. All the music today is from the World War I era, and it represents all aspects of the world at war. And as we know, this is happening today on Veterans Day weekend because we are commemorating the centenary of World War I. Following the service today, you're all invited to coffee hour through the doors behind me, and you can stop by the welcome table, find out more about us, and tell us more about you. You can also stay in touch by filling out a little blue connection card in your pew. You can talk to one of the ushers if you'd like to hear more. And let's see, in the back of your order of service, I call your attention to an announcement section. I think it's important to note that our anno lists and discussion lists and parish biz lists and all the staff email were out this entire week. So if you have been wondering why no one's posting on anno, that's why. And if you wondered why no staff answered your email, that's why. It wasn't personal, and we are on the road to fixing it with an incredible IT team, thanks to Colin Valentine and Delcy Sherrill. And you can email us with the verizon.net information. You can find that on our website. So tonight at 7 p.m., we are going to gather as citizens on the Bedford Town Common. We love to have it outside. It's a town event. If it's freezing, we bring it in here, but it's a town event. Kristallnacht means the night of broken glass, and it was on this night in 1938 that hundreds of Jewish stores and temples were desecrated, marking the beginning of overt anti-Semitism in Europe. And each year, members of the Bedford Jewish community and clergy and citizens of Bedford gather to stand together, saying, "We will not let hate continue. We stand together against oppression. We light candles, we share readings, and we toll our bell. And this year, 3 different youth groups are coming, so that should be really great. They're each bringing something to share. Do come if you can. Don't miss the auction next Saturday. It is lots of fun. It's you can bid early online. The live auction happens midway through the night, and it's like a stand-up comedy routine half the time, and that's really a lot of fun. Don't miss it. Next week, Minister Emeritus from Concord, our own church member, Gary Smith, will be preaching here at 9 and 11. And for the service following, so there's Thanksgiving in between with different services at 9, there's an intergenerational at 11, and then there's a town-wide service at 3 at the UCC Church at 25 The Great Road. So the weekend after that, Laura Felskolten is coordinating the service, and she's inviting the congregation to submit 250-word less essays about why religious freedom matters to you personally. And then she's going to select some of this and use that as part of the service. If you want to be a part of that, talk to her or stick a note in her box or email her at our hopefully now working new parish emails. Let's see, don't miss the semi-annual meeting today following this service. It's a great chance to hear about all the work the Strategic Planning Committee has been doing. They've spent ages putting it together. There's a great slideshow about their findings of our work as a community to determine who we are and who we want to be together in the world. And you won't want to miss the potatoes that are being sold to Benefit Partner Church. They're $5, and this goes to create a gift towards our partner church community in Abašvalva. $300 is needed. It buys the elders oil, cooking oil, and it buys the children oranges and a little candy. So when you buy a potato today, know you are making lots of folks happy at Christmas. And let's see, we are going to share in our unison affirmation. So please stand as you're willing and able. It's on the inside of our order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So be it. Welcome, one and all. And now, Cynthia.
Ten
Good morning. Because the listservs have been down, I would like to say to parents that we have the forms during coffee hour at the RE table all through the month of November to sign up for workshops that your kids would like to take, first and second choices, to make those requests that your kids would like to take for the winter session. So during coffee hour at an RE table back there. And as soon as we get these listservs up and running, we'll get all of the regular communications back to families that are wondering what's going on. I have a religious educator colleague named Alexis Capin who is working on a story to help children who have parents in the military and to help people understand how things are sometimes for children whose parents are in the military. And she shared her story with me, and I worked it to fit into a UU congregation's Time for All Ages. So actually, I'm going to read that this morning. What an opportune time. And the story's called Where's Daddy? When Brenda was born, she was the center of her mommy and daddy's lives. As the months passed, the days grew to have a rhythm. Brenda got up, ate breakfast, spent the day playing and napping and having her meals, and then mommy and daddy would bathe Brenda and tuck her into bed at night. It was a good rhythm. When Brenda was almost a year old, things changed. A big blanket was spread across the floor, and Mommy put Brenda down on it to play. The blanket was covered in pictures of Daddy. There was also a brand new stuffed monkey on the blanket. That night, only Mommy was there to tuck Brenda in to sleep. She put the stuffed monkey in bed with Brenda and pushed the button on the monkey's arm. "Good night, Brenda," the monkey said in Daddy's voice. "Sleep tight. Sweet dreams. Daddy loves you." Months passed. Everyone kept talking about Daddy and pointing to his picture on the wall. "Where's Daddy?" they would ask, and Brenda would point to Daddy's pictures on her blanket. After bath time, Mommy would tuck Brenda in, and the monkey too. She would push the button on the monkey's arm. "Good night, Brenda," the monkey would say in Daddy's voice. "Sleep tight. Sweet dreams. Daddy loves you." Life had a brand new rhythm. When Brenda was 2 years old, Mommy took her to a place where a big airplane landed. Lots of people in uniforms were getting off the plane. One man ran right up to Mommy and Brenda and gave them both a great big hug. Mommy was so happy. Brenda was a little scared. The man came home with them. Mommy asked Brenda, "Where's Daddy?" Brenda grinned, ran across the room, and picked up her blanket. The man looked sad. Mommy said, "Yes, that is a picture of Daddy, but look, here is real Daddy. He's come home." Brenda looked at the picture and then looked at the man. He didn't look like Daddy. His face was tanned. He looked skinnier and harder than the picture of Daddy. That night, at bedtime, Brenda got really upset. Daddy didn't let her pick out storybooks before getting into pajamas. He sat in the rocking chair funny, and he didn't put the monkey in bed next to her. The rhythm was all wrong. The next day, Daddy became frustrated when he couldn't find things in the house where he thought they should be. As days went on, Mommy and Brenda learned to wake Daddy by shouting from across the room instead of touching him. They walked with a little stamp in their step because Daddy would get startled if they walked too quickly. Daddy learned things too. he learned how Brenda liked to choose the bedtime story, that she didn't like going down the twisty slide at the park, and that she liked to have her feet tickled and laughed until she got hiccups. Daddy carried Brenda on his shoulders so she could reach the ceiling. Everyone learned how to share space, and their lives had a brand new rhythm. Then Daddy had to leave again. It was different this time. Brenda was older now, and she understood what deployed meant. She didn't get confused and think that Daddy was a picture on the wall or on the blanket, but she still wondered, where's Daddy? Sometimes she would get angry. She didn't want Daddy to be gone. She didn't want Mommy to be so sad. She wanted her whole family back together again and to have their rhythm. The next time Daddy came out of the big plane, Brenda raced into his arms. It still took a little time to get used to things at home. Mommy and Brenda helped make it easier. They put notes on the cabinets when things had been moved, and they made a picture book for Daddy about how bedtime went now. Mommy, Daddy, and Brenda loved each other very much, and before too long, they had a new rhythm together at home.
For those of you who are morning people, it helps to understand that Irving Berlin was an insomniac. And he was born in Russia, and in 1918 he became an American citizen, and Uncle Sam thanked him for that by drafting him. And if you've been in the service, you know what happens at 5 o'clock in the morning. Irving Berlin said he rarely wrote an autobiographical song, but this one truly came from the heart. Soldier quite a while, and I would like to state the life is simply wonderful, the army food is great. I sleep with 97 others in a wooden hut. I love them all, they all love me, it's very lovely, but oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed, for the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up this morning. Someday I'm going to murder the bugler. Someday they're going to find him dead. I'll amputate his reveille and step upon it heavily and spend the rest of my life in bed. A bugler in the army is the luckiest of men. He wakes the boys at 5 and then goes back to bed again. He doesn't have to blow again until the afternoon. If everything goes well with me, I'll be a bugler soon. Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed, for the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up this morning. Oh boy, the minute the battle is over. Oh boy, the minute the foe is dead. I'll put my uniform away and move to Philadelphia and spend the rest of my life in bed. And then I'll get that other pup, the guy who wakes the bugler up, and spend the rest of my life in bed.
Good morning. I'm Sandy Bozanowski, a member of the Lay Pastoral Care Team, and we pause in our service to share with each other our joys and our concerns. If you'd like to come forward and light a candle and briefly say what's on your mind, please do. I'm going to light one final candle for those thoughts, joys, concerns, sorrows that we keep silent in the sanctuary of our hearts.
And we are going to sing. This is hymn number 1. It's May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. Hymn number 1.
The offertory words today are number 674 in the hymnal. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received.
Shadows creep, and the world is asleep. In the still of the night, baby creeps down a flight. First she looks all around, without making a sound. Then baby toddles up to the telephone and whispers in a baby tone, "Hello, Central, give me no man's land. My daddy's there. My mama told me." She tiptoed off to bed after my prayers were said. Don't ring when you get my number, or you'll disturb Mama's slumber. I'm afraid to stand here by the phone, for I'm alone. So won't you hurry? I want to know why Mama starts to weep when I say now I lay me down to sleep. Hello, Central, give me no man's land. Through the curtains of night comes a beautiful light, and the sunlight that beams finds a baby in dreams. Mama looks in to see how her darling can be. She finds her baby still in her slumber deep, whispering while she's fast asleep. Hello, Central, give me no man's land. My daddy's there, my mama told me. She tiptoed off to bed after my prayers were said. Don't ring when you get my number, or you'll disturb Mama's slumber. I'm afraid to stand here by the phone, 'cause I'm alone. So won't you hurry? I want to know why Mama starts to weep when I say now I lay me down to sleep. Hello, Central, give me no man's land. Starts to weep when I say now I lay me down to sleep. Hello, Central, give me no man's land.
I think Megan invited me to give this sermon because I'm a psychiatrist at the VA, and I'm honored by that invitation, and I've had the distinct privilege of listening to thousands of veteran stories over the years. I'd like to begin with a little history of the Bedford VA. When I walk its halls and tunnels and paths, I enjoy walking in the footsteps of decades of veterans and nurses and doctors, 86 years now of the healing enterprise. It was planned as a neuropsychiatric hospital for New England a few years after the end of the Great War and opened to patients in 1928. Over 1,150 patients, all of whom would have had major central nervous system problems, such as brain injury, schizophrenia, bipolar, CNS, syphilis, or other disabling conditions that had developed during military service. Before its 80th anniversary, I asked town historian John Dodge for his memories, and he did remember it when it was new. If you were a boy in Bedford, your summer days were spent at Fawn Lake, and you came home to supper, but you didn't come home too late because passing the VA, you'd hear the screams of the men who had been gassed. That'll stick with you. By today's standards, treatment then was largely custodial. The prevailing treatment philosophy called for immersing the sufferer in what 19th century considered salubrious influences: natural surroundings, exposure to sun, air, and water, calisthenics, physical therapy, especially water therapy, and ennobling work. Also, the company of similar cases needing similar treatments in congregate cottages. For the humanizing work, there was a large farm, a wood shop, a machine shop, a printing press, a newspaper, and crafts workshops. Volunteers from local Red Cross chapters called Gray Ladies arranged off-station outings and on-station events. Local bands and theater groups gave performances. Church services were provided by clergy from First Parish and St. Michael's. Dances were held in Building 10, at which families and Bedford citizens came and danced with the patients. As time went on, both the infrastructure and the treatments changed. By World War II, 2 more buildings were needed, for a total of 11, to care for 1,800 patients. There was an OR, an ER, many specialty wards. Electroconvulsive therapy was given on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to those who needed it. Lobotomy had been stopped if it was ever practiced at Bedford after an early VA cooperative study demonstrated its worthlessness. Many of the doctors had been trained in psychoanalysis, but as far as I can tell, they didn't practice analysis on the veterans. 20 years later, some effective medications were available: lithium, thorazine, tofranil, Librium. Veterans were improving. Bedford and Tuscaloosa VAs pioneered community residential care, placing some in family homes with good case management services. Soon the rest of the VA system followed. By 1978, when I took a training rotation there, ECT was still given. The drug abuse residential program was still 2 years long, and psychoanalytic theory hadn't been outflanked yet by biological psychiatry. One of my mentors, an analyst named Charles Pinderhughes, had published what he called the theory of paired differential bonding. Now, I'm about to talk psychoanalytic theory to you, and it seems fairly cartoonish these days, but actually, no one can talk turkey about unconscious motivation like analysts. As an African American, Pinderhughes had wondered about all kinds of irrational prejudices. He observed humans naturally perceive mostly good attributes in those they are close with and identify with, and lay scorned, rejected, and feared attributes on outsiders. This happens, he took the next step of suggesting, for good biological reasons, as a biological economy. After all, the nervous system is organized around 2 main functional states, characterized as fight or flight and rest and digest. In fight or flight, adrenaline dominates, the heart pumps faster and harder, the mouth is dry. Blood is diverted from skin, so if you're clawed or cut, you won't bleed as fast. And gut, we're not going to do any digestion anytime soon. To brain and muscle where it's needed. The brain works faster and harder, time seems to stretch out. The opposite is true of rest and digest. So, having to deal with an enemy at the feast or a lover during the battle is worse than disruptive. It's dangerous. Brains work best in one gear at a time. So we draw boundaries inside which we feel it's safe to rest and digest, and outside which we have our guard up. Keeping things polar is biologically favored. Up versus down, inside versus outside, white versus black, right versus left, front versus back have their connotations because they fit into these categories. Positive bonding with familiar insiders makes them seem accepted and generally right and good. Negative bonding with unfamiliar outsiders make them seem dangerous and generally wrong and bad. You can see at once that tribalism at all levels flows pretty naturally from this dichotomizing. Drawing, maintaining, and revising these boundaries are clearly central in life. We're always playing with them. Our favorite themes are adventures in boundary management, the love at first sight, the knife in the back, the blood bond, the mole in the intelligence circle, the wedding celebration, the alien bursting from the crewmate. Two problems with this tendency. In the first place, both positive and negative bonding involve distortions called paranoia. Now, you may have thought paranoia was when I think that the CIA put something in my drink so that they can read my mind. But that's just bad paranoia. It's extreme. Ordinary paranoia creates and maintains social bonds, groups, and self-esteem. We constantly practice positive and negative attribution for the sake of a simplified field of operations. Imagining being safe and warm in our cave, we can lower our barriers and be our best with each other. Turn back to hymn 1 for a moment. In your gray hymnal, we're going to look for the incantation that creates imaginary boundaries we intend. They're our non-theistic consecration. Look at the door, the windows, the walls, the hearth, and with enough of this success, we can actually turn every casual corner into a shrine. As Doug Mooter preached 2 weeks ago, the products of our collective imagination aren't mere figments, they're our dearest aspirations. It is hymn number 1. The second problem is that the reflexive use of normal paranoia isn't a recipe for growth, learning, or sophistication. To develop these, you need an elaborate dance of critical and accepting moves. Now, what does all this have to do with war? Committing to war would be impossible without imagining a beloved homeland actively threatened by a vicious, inhuman enemy whom we should crush. Saddam Hussein must have weapons of mass destruction, deserving shock and awe. And fighting war would be impossible without tight combat units and intensive preparatory rituals for killing the enemy. We must have basic training. A reading from All Quiet on the Western Front. Then what exactly is the war for? Asked Theoden. Cat shrugs his shoulders. There must be some people to whom the war is useful. But there are more lies told by the other side than by us, I say. Just think of those pamphlets the prisoners have on them where it says that we eat Belgian children. Of course, all this paranoia is useful for instigating war, but the realities of war are quite different. War literature is full of the bitterness of soldiers who find this out. Let me next tell you about my first research project at Bedford VA. It was designed to find out whether there is a unique physiology to post-traumatic stress disorder, whether veterans with PTSD have a pattern of biological reactions to reminders of war different from those with similar combat but no PTSD symptoms. The design was this: enroll volunteer outpatients, rate the level of their combat trauma, diagnose them with or without PTSD, and then collect a detailed account of their worst war experiences. Recast these as a vivid present tense second-person narrative to be played back to them later in the physiology lab while measuring heart rate, sweating, and muscle tension. A narrative might read, "You are in the trench with Arnie and Buzz at about 6 a.m. when the shelling starts. You can hear the rounds coming in, and the explosions shock your ears. You feel the ground shake. You see the field blanketed in white smoke, and you smell the powder. Suddenly, Arnie screams high, and you see his shoulder torn open. You jump over to him and push the wound closed, but the warm, sticky red blood oozes through your fingers fast. You think, we're going to lose him. You just feel helpless." Although the subjects had all gone through a good informed consent process, neither they or I were ever really ready for these interviews. Most men cried. Maybe half said, "I can't believe I'm telling this. I've never told anyone about it before." I heard things about bodies that were familiar from medical school, but that I never wanted to imagine that way. When the account stopped, it was always an incredibly intimate moment. And throughout my career, men and later women wanted and didn't want to talk. The common themes: horrible events, terror or guilt that was never mastered, memories etched in stone but suppressed, memories escaping during nightmares or flashbacks or accidental encounters, changing one's life forever to avoid these breakouts, keeping emotions in check, controlling what one could control, including one's family, feeling abnormal or crazy. When I started my career, the Vietnam vets were coming in fast with these symptoms. They were set off by sudden loud noises, helicopter sounds, clearings with tree lines, Asian faces, sometimes little children. For the most vivid months of their lives, these had posed lethal threat and had demanded fight or flight mode, which they couldn't relax then, even in a safe civilian setting. These days, it's malls and crowds, where there are too many people to see what all the hands are doing all the time. Vets drive fast and furious, changing lanes if there's debris or an overpass, becoming angry at slow drivers who don't feel the danger. They overreact when the spouses who've been raising the kids are casual about best procedures or small risks. Part of them simply can't come home. Trauma affects us this way because it tears the fabric of our lives singly and societally. The warm circle is breached, rent, sometimes obliterated. Inside isn't inside anymore. You can't forget or ignore what you know. You can only try to live around the knowledge. And like an alcoholic waking up in jail, we as a society have to face the reality that we have gone again around the same damn bush. Us is us, them is them. If they try to mess with us, we know how to deal with them. That stuff on the border was messing with us. We got excited, and now here we are in the hospital dealing with the damage. All this poses the big question: is it possible to avoid war? Certainly the inborn physiology of tribalism isn't encouraging, but biology isn't destiny. Love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. We can develop habits, practices, even structures which combat thoughtless paranoia and redraw circles deliberately. That's exactly what we young psychiatry residents were taught. Whenever we heard about something or someone despised, devalued, or labeled, we were to become curious about it and investigate. It might be a projected part of the patient's own self. It might be a discriminated against person or culture. It might be something worth drawing a circle to include. When John stands here and talks about inviting the stranger to the table, he's singing this same song. Only by keeping an eager ear out for the alien can we systematically enlarge the circle of our lives. World War I brought us barbed wire, the machine gun, the submarine, aircraft used as weapons, the tank, poison gas, the Treaty of Versailles, and the League of Nations. It's pretty easy to look at this list and conclude that the tools of war are mightier than the tools of peace. But the tools of peace we have under our control are our practices of circle drawing. For me, the VA hospital represents the rest of us knitting back up the tear. Someone needs to hear the screams and listen to the stories. Someone needs to come dance with the inpatients. Someone needs to bring in the town clergy and choir and kids. Participating in the long project of re-civilianization reminds us that circles are not fate. We have choice. They are our tools. And we who haven't been to war can help by using them well.
of a teardrop. Hello means the birth of a smile, and the smile will erase the tear-blighting trace when we meet in the after a while. Smile the while you kiss me sad adieu. When the clouds roll by, I'll come to you. Then the skies will seem more blue. Down in Lover's Lane, my dearie, wedding bells will ring so merrily. Every tear will be a memory. So wait and pray each night for me till we meet again. Wedding bells will ring so merrily. Every tear will be a memory. So wait and pray each night for me till we meet again.
Our closing words are the last stanza of Robert Graves' poem Recalling War, written 20 years after World War I, when another war loomed. And we recall the merry ways of guns, nibbling the walls of factory and church like a child pie crust, felling groves of trees like a child dandelions with a switch. Machine guns rattle toy-like from a hill. Down in a row the brave tin soldiers fall. A sight to be recalled in elder days when learnedly the future we devote to yet more boastful visions of despair.
In a comical way, this ties in perfectly with Larry's sermon.
Reuben, I've been thinking,
Said his wifey dear.
now that all is peaceful and calm, the boys will soon be back on the farm.
Father Reuben started winking and slowly stroked his chin. He pulled his chair up close to Mother and he answered with a grin. How you gonna keep 'em down on the farm after they've seen Perry? How you gonna keep 'em away from Broadway, jazzing around and painting the town? How you gonna keep 'em away from harm? That's a mystery. They'll never want to see a rake or plow. And who the deuce can parley-voo a cow? How you gonna keep 'em boom.